we're going to have John McKenna, Rory O'Connell, Natalie Wheen and Ari Weinzweig back on stage just for the next few minutes before we break for lunch. Immediately, ladies and gentlemen, if there are questions or comments you'd like to make, crack on straight away because we're not going to have much time. So if you have any questions that have emerged out of their talks, start waving quickly. Anyone got anything initially? Maybe they'll come to you. I'm going to cut to the chase in terms of the overall theme of what we're doing here. John, starting with you, the most inspiring local project that you have come across, doesn't need to be in Ireland, anywhere in the world. What has it been and why do you think it is got good potential?
I think it was Veronica Steele creating Maline's cheese on the Beara Peninsula 40 years ago because she rode against the tide that said everything in Ireland was to become industrialized. Arran Foods, that all soup produced 1.5 pints from the pack. And she found the terroir of the Beara Peninsula, made a sustainable business, which runs to this day, run by her son. And she inspired other people to do exactly the same. So immediately we had Durrus cheese on the Sheepshead Peninsula, where I live myself, and then Gabine on the Mizzen Peninsula, instructed and taught by Veronica. The total antithesis of people would tell you how to run a modern business, which is kill the opposition, as you know, Ari. And she showed that artisanship and producing food of world-class quality was something that was at anybody's reach in Ireland. And I have been writing about those people. I've had the gift of writing about them for almost 30 years. So I owe my career, if you like, to the example she created. But the echo of what they did on a little farm on the Beara Peninsula with one cow who had one horn continues to this day. And that's a remarkable achievement for anybody.
Ari, what about you?
The most impressive local project, there's so many. I'm going to go back to, I was just in Bratislava, like I said, there's a project called Dobry Dobry, which means good in Slovak, and they actually have put homeless people to work in a restaurant setting, and they're putting out really quite remarkably good food and coffee. And my next book is about beliefs, and the work that they're doing is to change the beliefs of people who have been living on the street to believe in themselves and to believe that there's a place for them in society and that they actually have a chance to change their lives. It's pretty amazing.
Natalie?
Well, coming from working in the arts, where people say, oh, I'm a writer, or I'm a fiddle player, or I'm a composer, and you owe me a living, it's been a huge shock for us to work in the food business and find that, I mean, I can't mention one, I can just mention the extraordinary endeavor, bravery, bloody-mindedness, courage of all these people who have started small businesses, started small farms, gone against the grain, whatever. I just was up in northeast of England at a place called Piercebridge Organics, and I came over the hill, and there was a farm which was absolutely, I mean, the hens were so happy in their field, they were running around with their little houses, and the eggs, my dear, so that was double yolkers and triple yolkers, fantastic. When I bought a chicken that would have fed, I think it did us 12 meals. Anyway, how did it start? I've just remembered him. Young Harry was told that the feed for his eggs, he was given some hens when he was 7, and he started his egg business. And then the feed company said, well, it's if you want non-GM feed for your chickens, it's going to be terribly expensive. So he went to his parents and said, we've got to go organic. And he was about 12. And the parents said, oh, well, okay. And he changed them, and they're organic, and it's just the best food, the best meat, the best eggs, the best chicken, etc. So, I mean, that's the sort of person that stuns us. And when I meet one of my old colleagues who says, well, the Arts Council grant has gone down, I want to smack them. I do. It's
We're going through something similar in Ireland. Rory?
I suppose, for me, the most obvious, and people will indulge you when I say Myrtle Allen opening the restaurant here 50 years ago. And at the time, her ambition was purely local. She thought in her way that some of the local farmers might come and dine in the dining room that she opened at Ballymaloe. They clobbered it all together, for birthdays and christenings and that sort of thing. So completely local ambition. She thought if she was really achieving, that some of the businessmen from Cork City might come out and also dine in the dining room. And it was, she had no global ambitions. However, her simple local ambition, which was based on the local foods, has had something of a global impact, I would say.
Huge.
It created the country house concept.
Yes,
That's where it all comes back to Ballymaloe in 1964.
Yes, yeah.
Everybody who has opened a country house hotel has copied Myrtle's concept.
Yes, yeah.
Everyone, globally.
Yeah. So, but it was based on a complete love and respect for the ingredient and the land it was grown in, and also a respect for the guest, the person who was coming to sit at your table, whether it was just one of the family having a boiled egg or a guest coming in to have a dinner. So it was
and actually, the biggest affirmation of that is the fact that now our entire agri-industry is based on the messages, in a branding sense, the messages of what she was saying. There is another debate about whether that's actually the case through and through, but the story that we tell to the world, is it not, John?
It is
Myrtle's original story.
It is, yes. Ireland, the food island, and with the green connotations. Whether we live up to it is another day's work, but there's no question but that goes back to the fact that, I suppose, two facts. One, Myrtle came up with that message, and two, her real genius, she's never gone off message, ever. Despite all the pressures, political and financial, and and the fact that she was always rowing against the tide, she never ever changed the mantra that what was around her was special and unique and, as Rory says, worthy of respect.
Ari, something that John mentioned there is quite interesting, isn't it? The difference between cooperation and competition. I mean, between food businesses, it does tend to be competition, but actually what you need is that absolute cooperation and sharing of knowledge and information.
Yeah, I don't, the competition thing is, in sports, I don't really know any other way, because two teams play and somebody's going to win. But I think our approach to business, at least, is completely the opposite, which is really to have everybody win. And I think that the old model, which is win-lose, is destructive and unhelpful. And even when people do it in terms of I'm the best or he's the best, it demeans everybody else. And I think really the idea is to, in a healthy ecosystem in nature, which is what we're trying to recreate in business, everything does well together, right? It's not this versus that, it's all helping together. So I agree.
And very much true in the olive oil business, that, isn't it? Because it's fierce and dirty tricks go on in that business, but then...
Even in our local factory. Yes, absolutely. Dirty tricks absolutely everywhere. It's the business of envy. I think that if you watch the television, there's, I would like to have this car or that, such and such, and that, and you're envious, or you're supposed to be envious, which is why you're supposed to oil the engine of envy, and you want to buy something or other. And that's terribly sad, but we have found, not in the olive oil business, in other businesses, people have been incredibly supportive to us. So Ari, you're right, you want to start your own each individual business has got to be a unique business and going on. But it is very sad, actually. We have to supervise absolutely everything about our olive oil, from the tree to the bottle. If I'm in the field, Deborah's at the mill, and if I'm at the mill, Deborah's in the field, supervising what goes on. And I put the oil into the tanks to send them to the UK to be bottled, and I'm standing on the truck. And they say little old ladies like me, fat little old ladies like me, should not be on the truck. So bugger off, And I seal the whole thing up, and I say to the truck driver, if something happens to it between here and Athens, you know what's going to happen to your legs. Isn't that awful? No, I mean, our experience has been, hither and yon. Our olive oil competitors are pretty cross with us because we do things differently from them. But everybody else has been so helpful. I mean, really helpful, in terms of, have you chosen this design, or do you know this way, et cetera, et cetera. And I think this is the small business.
Yes.
We have nothing to do with the big commercial firms. Nobody in good quality food has anything to do with big commercial firms. And we run our way of life totally organic. I like to know where my pork chops come from and where my salads have grown, all that. And this is Ballymaloe as well, you know.
And John, is it your sense that that kind of cooperation is very much still happening in Ireland?
Absolutely.
The cooperation you spoke of with the Steels?
Amongst food people, absolutely, yes. I mean, I think, for example, particularly anybody nowadays, you know, who starts a business, often the first port of call is the local market, and that they are communities. That market is, I prefer the term meshwork, because a meshwork is like, you know, an alpaca sweater. It's so tightly interwoven you can't pull it apart, but everything's on the same level. That's the important thing. You see, the supermarket is a pyramid with the CEO at the top with a big paycheck, but the market is a meshwork. So, and it's one of the ways in which the growth of business. I mean, later on today, for example, I'll be talking to Seamus Sheridan. Sheridan's business began at a market stall. You know, Sally's talking to Claire Patak at the present moment, who started her business in London at a market stall. And it's partly, you know, I remember somebody, a lovely organic grower from County Wicklow, saying to me one time, I hadn't seen him for several years, you know, and I saw him at a market. And I said, oh, great to see you back, man. Where have you been? He said, oh, I stopped doing it. The kids started doing it. He said, but I missed the crack. He was back for the crack. And that was dealing face to face with somebody. And not just selling them something good, but having that wonderful feedback that when I go to the Bantry Market on a Friday morning, it's that crack that you get with people, but they get it as well. The alternative is you go into the supermarket and they say, what do they say?
Like €5.
Have you got a club card? As if they don't know a loyalty card. Have you got a loyalty card? In other words, please give us the means to snoop on how you spend your money. That's what it means. That's what it actually means. But they don't tell you that. So it's such, there is such a divergence. And one is local, the local hero, the sustainable. The other one is frankly not sustainable.
But coming here, we thought we must go around Ireland and have a look. And so we've been driving around, and I put an itinerary, which I would do in England, which has been completely blown out of the water. And we were in Nina in Limerick with Peter Ward, and we stopped, and there was a cup of coffee, and there was the cheese, and there were the people coming by. And an hour and a half later, and a parking ticket, no doubt, we went on our way. It has been just fantastic. And the really good shops, the really good producers, fabulous.
It's wonderful. I have a good farmer friend who's at a market, and after every market, every week, he phones me with all the gossip. And for a journalist like me, it is incredibly interesting how helpful some of that gossip is. It always rings true. Finally, Rory, because I know everyone's probably quite hungry, we shall break for lunch. But Rory, for you, going back to the question I asked John, is it your sense that that kind of cooperation is, as John said, absolutely part of the fabric of the local food movement in Ireland?
I mean, completely. You need only walk down to the big shed now. Some of you will maybe even be going down there for lunch and see all these mostly young but older people like me and even older than me, cheek to jowl, talking, chatting, sharing experiences, sharing taste, sharing tips about, you know, what's the best van, what the most practical van, the most energy efficient van to get from to the market and all that sort of thing. Completely, yeah, totally. And I mean, you know, people, you know, sort of Jasper and Casey, you know, the point that they made about how easy it was, in a sense, to market what they were doing at the Dillis project on the edge of the world, that's sort of that sharing thing as well, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is. So yeah, for sure.
It's wonderful. So ladies and gentlemen, before you leave, oh, good, we have a comment or a question. Just wait for the microphone if you can, please. The microphone there, thanks.
It doesn't really need an answer, so I feel justified in asking it, but or making the comment. Many years ago at a demonstration in the cookery school, Dorina was also discussing olive oils. And at the end, slightly tongue-in-cheek, I stood up and asked her, I know what you have to do or not do to be a virgin, but how do you become an extra virgin? And I don't think we really got an answer, but we got some enlightenment on that today.
Extra virgin, it is very, very simple. You go to your olive tree, and we pick only when we think the olives are at their best. So you want a really, really good fruit. They all taste different, you know, and depending on the climate and the aspect, it all changes the taste of the olive oil. But extra virgin olive oil, the technical thing is it's a freshly picked fruit of top quality. It is milled within 24 hours, and it must taste and smell good, as well as to have a low acidity. That's it. But the low acidity gives a premium price, so everybody wants to push their rubbish oil down to that low acidity. It's very simple. 0% to 0.8% oleic acid per 100 ml of oil. That's the baseline. But that's where it starts, because it's got to taste and smell good. And it can come out of the mill at 2%, at extra virgin. But as Ari was saying, it sits in a truck somewhere in the sun. You know, it's not looked after properly. You have to keep it cool and in the dark. And if it's cooked up in the sun, and we junked one of our olive mills because he put his new tanks on the south-facing side of his factory, outside in the sun. So every day it was getting up to 30 degrees, 40 degrees, I don't know.
You could have put chips in it.
What? You could have put chips in it.
Natalie, there's another question here.
Yes.
Just before, you may have mentioned this, excuse me if you did, but what does avlaki stand for?
Avlaki? A place of water or a ditch.
Yes.
Hi, I have a quick question for Ari.
Yes, Roisin.
Your business ethos is really famous, and we know many of the success stories from that. Have you any quick anecdotes about more traditional businesses that have come into the business school to try and change the culture that they have? Maybe a culture that's more like that competitive dog-eat-dog one.
That have come to Zing Train, you mean?
And changed what they do, yes, because of the learnings.
I don't know. You know, I think in the spirit of the last quote I read, I mean, it's not really our mission to go make everybody behave in a different way. It's really more to model it. But there's lots of businesses, including Philip, who's Doreena's son-in-law, just grabbed me last night to introduce himself and said he was in Doreena's kitchen and he saw this book about anarchists and laying on the table, and he picked it up and read it in 3 days, and it changed his whole business. But
He makes pizzas.
yeah, but you know, it's being used in Tanzania. I believe it's universal, and I believe that the great businesses. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk about 12 natural laws of business. If you run the list against what's happening here at Ballymaloe, you'll see that even though they never called it that, it's exactly what's been going on since day one when Myrtle started, and it's going on now today. So I think we've influenced a lot of people. I think the bigger ones, you know, their belief set is, you can't really force anyone to change their beliefs. They have to be ready to change them. And I think most of them are not ready to change them. And when they're ready, we'll be there.
Wonderful. We're going to leave it at that. You're in the right place if you're hungry. I don't even need to begin to tell you. You know where all the food is. Before you leave, in the hallway there outside the doors, on the wall, there are packets of seeds which you can take at your leisure, Rory, and plant.
Yes, please
you must plant.
They're from Brown Envelopes, wonderful Madeleine McKeever of Brown Envelope
Amazing
Seeds, many of you
woman,
will know. And please take a packet of seeds, but only if you're going to plant it.
Only
and if you do plant it and grow it and eat it, we've achieved something.
And back at 2:45, please put your hands together for the panel. Thanks a million.
Thank you very much.